Hi guys, since it's time trial Tuesday for me, I want to talk you through the gearing and complete drivetrain of my time trial bike and explain the reasons why am I using such an unusual setup. So as you can see, this is a 1x setup. Last year I have been using Durace Di2 on both my old and my new time trial bike, which means my current time trial bike, this one, and I was quite satisfied with it. That's the setup that most people are using. But then I realized that maybe I could come up with something a bit more special, a bit more personal, a bit more simple. So I'm a really big fan of SRAM's 1x drivetrains. And to be honest, out of the 3 bikes that I own, only one of them has a front derailleur. And that's because I just really like the simplicity of it. And it really makes sense in a time trial, because usually the terrain for any time trial course is set up in a way that you basically only ride fast, and you don't really need all that much gear range because you don't have big ascents, big climbs, or big descents, so there's not a huge amount of spread in there. And the first setup I have used was a bit different from this one. So I was using a standard SRAM X-Sync front chainring and a really quite small 50 tooth one. I'm going to explain that a bit later on, and I used it with SRAM's 1x specific Force 1 derailleur, which is quite similar to the mountain bike versions. Shifter wise, I completely fell in love with SRAM's R2C shift controller, because unlike any other shifter basically on the market, this actually returns to its position after shifting, so it's a really very smooth operation, and you don't have those awkward hand positions that could make it really uncomfortable. To be honest, most of the time of my cycling career I have spent on electronic drivetrains, and never really thought I'm going back to mechanical, but this lever basically makes that possible to be comfortable even with this version. So it's a really nice product. Very expensive for what it is, essentially just a shifter with a ratchet ring in it, but it's extremely precise, very ergonomic, so I really like it. So to be honest, if I was strapped to a Shimano system, then I would go electronic and 2x, but this is basically the thing that makes my 1x setup possible and enjoyable. It also has these little notchings to see actually where you are on your cassette, but unfortunately when you're in time trial position you can't really see that, but it's not really an issue. So I paired this with my aforementioned Force 1 derailleur, which I've used for quite a long time now, but then I decided to change that. Well, the first thing I changed on my setup was the 50 tooth ring. Now if you take 5011 as your biggest gear, then you will notice that you can top out at more than 75 km per hour, and I'm telling you, even though I was on a time trial bike, I never really hit those speeds, and I don't think anyone will. So why do you need a bigger ring on a time trial? Because you may have noticed that every pro triathlete or even a bit more advanced rider uses bigger rings on their time trial setups. Now the reason for that is friction. Since you're riding at higher speeds on a time trial bike with a small ring, you will most often end up at a small end of your cassette, and if you have read some friction facts, then you know that little cogs and little rings equate to more friction, because the chain has to do more of a bend. It has to bend around the cogs more tightly. So that means with a bigger ring paired with a bigger cog in the rear, you get the same gear ratio effectively, but you save a little bit of friction. Now the point is, of course, when you're using a bigger ring with a bigger cog at the same time, the chain line is much more straight. If you set up your gears right for your speeds, then you are basically always in the middle of your cassette where the chain line is going to be most effective. So that's one point. And another thing that is basically a side effect of this, when you're running a bigger cog, your Mac is basically closer to your wheel, and if that's a disc wheel, this helps smooth out the airflow, because essentially the derailleur is tucked in more closely to the wheel. That creates for a smoother airflow. So tiny bit of savings from different areas right there. So the ring I use here, actually it's quite an exclusive one, made by a British company, Aerocoach. So this is a carbon fiber 1x specific chainring. As you can see, the teeth are all individually machined out of carbon fiber. I never really thought that was possible until I saw this, but it is, and it works very, very nicely. The chainring itself is also a bit out of round, so it's a time trial optimized shape. Whether that's actually helpful or not, I can't really debate on that, because honestly the shape on this one is so subtle that I can't really feel when I transition to them if it's round or not, so it doesn't really matter. What matters is that the teeth on this chainring are really, really very tall, and in quite a similar fashion as the SRAM rings. But the problem that I found for SRAM rings in a time trial setup is that basically these white teeth create quite a lot of friction as they grip the chain. So this one has a bit of an advantage over there, because even though the teeth are, as you can see here, they even go over the chain, they're extremely tall, but they're very thin as well, so they don't create extra friction by gripping the chain on the side of the links. So that's very nice as well, and a piece of a tiny saving to create a lower friction drive chain. Then cranks wise, this is a SRAM Red D0 110 BCD crank with newest Quark power meter on there. It's a smaller BCD, so you get a straight transition all the way from the chainring to the spider. No gaps here, as there will be with 130 BCD, but because of this, ARC had to basically make this small cutout on the chainring, so it actually fits over there without taking the spider off. Now, if you have seen my Strava account, I'm not a very strong time trialist. I usually ride at around 45-46 km per hour in the races in terms of average speed, so that way this is a 54 tooth. This is basically what creates my best chain line. If you're faster than that, you are better off with a 56 or a 58, and I'm hoping to upgrade as my fitness progresses. Now I use quite short cranks because of my aggressive position, and I have some 165s even on the way to try them out, so I'm looking forward to those, but that's not really the issue we're talking about here right now. Then chain wise, with my recent upgrade to the red derailleur, I'm going to talk about that now. You may have already seen it in one of my videos. So the reason why I didn't really like the Force one, these are just tiny details basically, but the first thing is the clutch. Now because of the clutch, the tension on the chain is extremely high at all times, and that creates for two things. Since the lever blade on the time trial shifter is quite small, it makes it quite hard to pull. Even though I use this super trick Jaguar Elite Link aluminum link system with basically no friction at all, it still makes for a hard lever pull. And the more important thing, or the more annoying thing, is that a very tense chain again creates a lot of friction, and that's not what you want on a time trial bike. And since this is designed for off-road use, of course it kept the chain on very securely, but I didn't really think it was absolutely necessary, so I decided to switch for this bit different setup to try it out. Now, friction wise, I also had Ceramicspeed pulley wheels on this, but again these have a narrow wide profile, so that creates additional friction. So that's another point which I wanted to address. So my current setup: standard red 22 road derailleur, no clutch, and a Ceramicspeed oversized pulley wheel system for SRAM mechanical coated bearings in there. So how is this different? Well, first, if you look at the profile of the two mechs, this one is much slimmer, much more streamlined, so that might be good for aero. Then over 100 grams lighter as well, and since this is a road and not one by specific derailleur, it doesn't have a clutch, so the chain tension is pretty light and you don't get that stiff feeling at the lever. Actually, this is, I think, one of the best shifting, mechanical or electrical, that I have ever experienced. You get the nice feedback of the mechanical lever, but you get a shifting speed and precision on par, or maybe even a tiny bit better than electronic setups. So yeah, the one thing I was worried about here is actually the chain security, because I have seen guys, or one of my viewers commented that he runs a standard setup with this chaining, even with the chain shortened to keep it taut, but he still gets drop chains. Now I have a full length 1/18 link chain, so it's very loose, again for low friction, and I have tried this bike on very rough roads recently, and I have to say the chain security is excellent. And I think one of the reasons why is that this oversized pulley wheel system is quite big, has quite a lot of inertia in it, so it helps keep the chain slap very minimal. So overall I'm quite happy with this setup. Cassette wise, of course, choosing a cassette with a 1x is quite important. 11 to 28 is the smallest that I use, and I use it for 99% of the courses because they're mostly flat or rolling. But those who ride hilly time trials can use 1132, or that's certified with this setup, or maybe on 1136. I'm pretty sure it will work as well. I might actually need to try that out because there are going to be some hill climb style TTs, and I'm not sure I want to use my road bike for those, so maybe I'll be putting the 52 chainring and 36 or 32 cassettes back on there. Okay, so I think this has been a pretty detailed view of my drivetrain. I hope this inspired you to try a similar setup to yours. I think for time trialing, easier or harder is all you need to think about, and makes your life much more simpler. Even with a standard derailleur, no worries at all, it just works. One more thing I'm going to inform you about later on is how I do with the shorter cranks, but they're not going to arrive until September, so that's still quite a long way to go. So anyway, thanks for watching today. That's all for now. Don't forget to tune into the channel later on and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.